He left her the day after she found out she couldn't have children. No warning, no compassion, just a cold explanation about legacy and bloodlines, as if love could be measured by DNA. She had supported him through law school, decorated his career like one of her luxury interiors, and believed in every promise he made. But when the doctor said infertile, he heard useless. So he packed his suits, married his boss's daughter, and had a new baby on the way before the divorce papers were dry. That was 20 years ago. Now, he's running for Senate, flaunting his perfect family on every campaign poster. A proud father. A man of values. But tonight, the past walks through the doors of his gala. She's not alone. She brings with her 3 faces, 3 lives he once said would never be enough. One plays the piano. One captures the room through her lens. One holds his speech notes like a ticking bomb. They didn't come for revenge. They came so he would see. Because sometimes, the most powerful kind of justice is being witnessed. And what happens when the man obsessed with legacy comes face to face with the family he never claimed? You'll want to stay for this. Grace Dawson's life had always been about balance, curves and lines, soft palates against bold accents, spaces that whispered comfort but spoke with confidence. By 33, she had become one of the most sought-after interior designers in Washington, D.C. Her client list read like a who's who of political wives and corporate giants. She designed the rooms where deals were signed, where power lunches turned into presidential appointments. She was married to Andrew Whitmore, Harvard Law, razor-sharp ambition, and a last name whispered with reverence inside Capitol Hill's most exclusive circles. He was a federal judge climbing toward a Senate seat, and Grace had been there through it all. She believed in him. Believed in them. Theirs was a marriage built on mutual ambition, candlelit compromise, and dreams scribbled in the margins of campaign planners. They had a house in Georgetown, white brick, black shutters, and a nursery at the top of the stairs that Grace had been sketching in her mind for years. She could see the soft gray walls, the rocking chair by the window, the antique cradle she'd found in an upstate auction. Every detail was ready, except the baby. They'd been trying for 2 years. Tests, calendars, early morning appointments. Hope had become mechanical. Until one afternoon, sitting across from her specialist, Grace's world stopped mid-breath. Premature ovarian failure, the doctor said gently. Your body's no longer producing viable eggs. The words didn't land all at once. They sank in layers. Grace blinked. But I'm only 33. I know. It's rare, but not impossible. What are our options? Donor eggs. Surrogacy. Adoption. Grace clutched her purse so tightly her nails left half-moons in the leather. Later that night, when she told Andrew, she expected him to be shaken, but to hold her. To say they'd figure it out. Instead, he sat in silence. Then, so the child wouldn't be biologically yours? No, she said softly. But we'd carry it. Raise it. Love it. He looked out the window, then back at her with a coldness that made her breath hitch. And adoption? Raising someone else's child? No, Grace said. Raising our child. Andrew stood. Loosened his tie. I can't do this. She stared. What? I need my own bloodline. My legacy. I'm sorry. That was it. 7 years of marriage, reduced to a closing statement. Within months, the divorce was finalized. Within a year, he married Elle Keating, 25, daughter of a senior senator, and visibly pregnant by the time their wedding photos hit the Washington Post's lifestyle section. Grace watched her old life dissolve around her. The clients stopped calling. The invitations dried up. Her face became a social ghost in the circles where she once reigned. She left D.C. with one suitcase, her dog-eared design journals, and a bank account that looked healthy but felt poisoned. Minneapolis wasn't where she thought she'd end up. But the cold air forced her to breathe differently. Slower. Deeper. She found a walk-up in a neighborhood where no one asked who she used to be. She worked freelance design jobs, bedroom makeovers, local coffee shop remodels. Nothing like the marble foyers of DC, but the work felt quieter. Realer. On a whim, she walked into the city's foster care center one rainy Thursday with a donation of old decor items. That's when she met Mina, the center's director. Petite, no-nonsense, with eyes that saw straight through facades. "Can you make these visitation rooms feel less like jail cells?" Mina asked. Grace nodded. "I can make them feel like childhood again." She painted clouds. Added soft lighting. Found used furniture with stories still in the wood grain. Every hour she spent there stitched a tiny thread back through her broken seams. Then one day, it happened. A caseworker rushed into the visitation room in tears. 3 siblings had just lost both parents in a car crash. No next of kin. No available foster homes that could take all 3. They would be separated by morning. The oldest, Ethan, 7, held his little sister Lily's hand with a grip too tight for his small frame. The baby, Ava, screamed in the carrier, inconsolable. Grace knelt beside them. Ethan looked at her, guarded but pleading. "I promised my mom I'd take care of them." Grace didn't think. She didn't plan. She just spoke. "What if they stayed with me?" Mina blinked. "Grace, you're not a certified foster parent. I'll start the process today. I have space. Not much, but enough. Please don't separate them." It was madness. She had a 1-bedroom apartment, a folding couch, and no parenting experience. But within 48 hours, she had a crib from Craigslist, bunk beds from a neighbor, and emergency foster certification pushed through by a miracle or desperation. The first night was chaos. Ava cried until dawn. Lily wet the bed. Ethan checked the locks 4 times before sleeping with his shoes on. And Grace? She sat in the hallway and cried until she couldn't anymore. But by morning, something shifted. She was no longer alone. She made pancakes. Braided Lily's hair. Showed Ethan how to set the table. The nursery she had once dreamed of was gone. But in its place were peanut butter fingerprints on the fridge, crayon drawings on the wall, and 3 pairs of shoes at the door. She hadn't birthed them. But they had made her a mother. And as the sun rose over her new city, she realized something. Legacy isn't built through blood. It's built through showing up even when everything in you is afraid. And she would show up every single day. 20 years is a long time. It's enough time to heal. To rebuild. To raise 3 kids who were once strangers into young adults who feel like your soul got split into thirds. It's also enough time for an ex-husband to rebrand himself as a hero. Andrew Whitmore had become a household name in political circles. Federal judge turned state Senate candidate. Speeches about integrity. Campaigns centered on restoring the American family. Glossy mailers with him in a navy suit, smiling beside his elegant wife Elle and their 2 children, perfectly lit by golden hour. Grace saw the ads by accident. She was flipping through a Minneapolis newspaper when her daughter Ava, now 17 and a budding photojournalist, pointed to the screen of her iPad and said, "Mom, this guy's running for Senate. His face is everywhere in the Boston press." Grace looked up, and her world tilted. It was Andrew. Older now. Still handsome. Distinguished gray temples. His campaign slogan, family. Integrity. Legacy sat like a dare beneath his portrait. Grace set the paper down. That man left his wife because she couldn't give him children. Her son Ethan, now 19 and applying to MIT's biochemical engineering program, stiffened. He left you because you couldn't have biological kids. Lily, 18, who once didn't speak a word to anyone outside their family, now a quiet musical prodigy, looked up from the piano bench. He's lying to the whole state. They didn't yell. They didn't cry. They started planning. Weeks later, Ava received an acceptance email from a Boston arts journal. Her application to cover the Harrington Gala had been approved. Lily, through her piano teacher's connections, was booked to perform during the cocktail hour and candidates' entrance. Ethan, leveraging his academic accolades and student leadership record, was accepted as a campaign intern. Each of them had a legitimate reason to be in the room. They just didn't mention why they wanted to be there. Grace found out only after she spotted a formal invitation in Ethan's backpack. Her stomach dropped as she turned the envelope over. It was embossed with gold. The Whitmore Campaign Committee cordially invites you to an evening of legacy and leadership. Ritz-Carlton, Boston, black tie. Ethan, she asked, calm but stern, what is this? He paused, then looked her straight in the eyes. We're going to his gala, Mom. All of us. Grace's first instinct was panic. To confront him? You can't, he's a public figure. You'll be thrown out. It'll backfire. We're not going to scream or flip tables, Ava chimed in. We just want him to see us. Lily added softly, to see what he said would never be enough. Grace was speechless. She had worked her entire life to protect her kids from Andrew's shadow. She never badmouthed him. She had buried that wound so deep she forgot it still ached sometimes. But looking at her children, proud, brilliant, forged in fire, something inside her shifted. If we go, she said slowly, we go with dignity. We're not here for revenge. We're here to tell the truth without saying a word. Boston was colder than she remembered. Or maybe it was just walking into a hotel lobby where she'd once attended charity galas with the man who now stood for everything he had once rejected her for. The Ritz-Carlton gleamed with the polished elegance of old money. Crystals sparkled. Champagne flowed. Power gathered. Lily took her place at the grand piano, hands poised, calm as moonlight. Ava roamed with her camera, snapping candids like a seasoned pro. Ethan stood backstage, clipboard in hand, checking the guest flow for the press photos. And then Grace stepped through the doors. Her navy gown flowed like liquid steel. Her hair was pinned high. Her face, radiant but unreadable. She wasn't a ghost from Andrew's past. She was a reckoning. Across the ballroom, Andrew paused mid-conversation. His eyes scanned the room casually, then stopped. Landed on her. And didn't move. For a second, everything around him blurred. Grace held his gaze. Tilted her chin. His lips parted slightly. Recognition flickered. Then confusion. Then something almost like fear. He murmured to his wife and began to weave through the crowd. Grace didn't move. He approached, smile fixed but eyes unsettled. Grace, he said quietly. This is unexpected. I imagine it is, she replied, her voice like glass, cool, reflective, sharp. You look, well. I am. Very. A flashbulb popped nearby Ava, catching the exact moment his mask cracked. Andrew tried to recover. I didn't know you were in Boston. I'm not, she said. Just visiting. He glanced toward the piano. His eyes narrowed. Is that your daughter? Grace didn't answer. Your adopted daughter? He asked again, slower, like the words stuck in his throat. Grace met his stare. They're my children. And yes, they're adopted. All three. He blinked. Ethan appeared behind him, clipboard in hand. Judge Whitmore, the press is ready. Andrew turned, startled, then froze. Ethan nodded politely. We met earlier. I'm helping coordinate press photos. Andrew didn't speak. Just stared at the boy, the young man, who had his mother's eyes and none of his DNA. I'll see you on stage, Grace said softly. As Andrew turned away, Lily's music shifted. It wasn't part of the original set list. It was canon in D. The same piece Grace had walked down the aisle to 23 years ago. Andrew's stride faltered. He looked at Lily. Then at Grace. And in that moment, the whole ballroom seemed to freeze, time folding in on itself. The bride he left. The children he refused to consider. The family he said would never be real. They were all there. And they were breathtaking. He had come to celebrate legacy. But he never expected to be haunted by the one he abandoned. And the look on his face? Absolutely. Priceless. The lights dimmed just enough to set the tone, intimate but grand. Across the ballroom, champagne glasses tinkled and murmurs filled the space. Then the spotlight shifted slightly toward the grand piano at the corner of the stage. Lily took a breath, pressed her fingers to the keys, and began. The first few notes were soft, almost tentative. Then came the unmistakable melody, canon in D, and the room settled into reverent quiet. But for 3 people in that room, it wasn't just music. It was memory. For Grace, standing near the back in a simple navy gown, the first chord hit her chest like a heartbeat she hadn't heard in decades. That song had played as she walked down the aisle toward the man who would later walk away from her. It was their wedding song. The last time she had believed in forever. Andrew froze mid-step on his way to the podium. His jaw clenched, eyes darting toward the piano. It took him a moment to realize it was her, Lily. The same girl he had seen earlier, now weaving history into the air with every note. He took the stage anyway, straightening his shoulders like a soldier under inspection. Good evening, he began, voice smooth, practiced. It's an honor to stand before you tonight. Grace watched from the shadows. Not hiding. Not waiting. Just listening. My journey has always been rooted in 3 values: family, integrity, and legacy. Click. Ava snapped the photo. The lighting perfect. Andrew bathed in campaign glory, his mouth halfway between truth and fiction. Behind the lens, Ava didn't flinch. She zoomed in, capturing every twitch of discomfort as his gaze flickered between her, Ethan by the teleprompter, and Lily at the piano. Andrew continued, but something had shifted. A tremble in the cadence. The smile just a little too tight. In today's world, we must protect the sacred foundation of family. Click. Ava caught his hands gripping the podium, white-knuckled now. Grace didn't move. She didn't blink. Her presence wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. A quiet force. A woman who had been erased, now unerasable. Andrew's words started to stutter. We must remember that a man's legacy, it's not just his achievements. Click. Ava captured the exact second he looked into the crowd and saw Ethan standing offstage, headset still on, expression blank but unrelenting. That was the boy who would have carried his name if DNA had been the only thing that mattered. But his children, Andrew continued, faltering again. The ones who carry his values forward. Lily ended the piece with a single, delicate note. Silence hung in the room like fog. And then, applause. Polite. Measured. Obligatory. Andrew stepped down from the podium, scanning the crowd, clearly rattled. His wife, Elle, smiled from the front row, oblivious to the internal earthquake her husband was enduring. And then he saw her. Grace. Still. Poised. Composed. He walked toward her slowly, like a man approaching a mirror he'd avoided for too long. She said nothing. He came to a stop just feet away, his voice low. You planned this, didn't you? Grace tilted her head, smiling just faintly. No. They did. His jaw flexed. You brought them here to humiliate me. No, Andrew, she said calmly. They came to be seen. To show you who I became after you left. He looked toward Ava and Lily, then over his shoulder at Ethan now stepping away from the teleprompter. These aren't your kids, he said quietly, almost defensively. Grace stepped closer, not aggressive, just unflinching. No, Andrew. They're not your blood. She paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the entire room fade around them. But they are my legacy. His eyes dropped. And for a man who once spoke about power as if he owned it, he suddenly looked very small. You said I'd never have a real family, she added. You were wrong. He searched her face for bitterness, for anger, maybe even revenge. But all he found was truth. Pure. Undeniable. Standing upright in heels and dignity. Across the room, the guests buzzed, clinking glasses, catching up with donors, laughing at nothing in particular. No one else knew what had just cracked open beneath the surface of the Whitmore campaign. But Andrew knew. And so did Grace. I wish you well, Andrew, she said finally, voice even. I truly do. But next time you use words like legacy and family in a speech, try to mean them. She turned before he could respond and walked away, her children falling into step beside her, Ava slinging her camera back over her shoulder, Ethan holding the door open, Lily's fingers trailing the air like she was still playing. No applause followed her exit. No spotlight lit the moment. But for the first time in 2 decades, Grace didn't need anyone's validation. She had witnessed him. More importantly, he had seen them. And that was enough. The news broke quietly, no press conference, no dramatic resignation speech. Just a terse headline on a midweek morning. Whitmore suspends Senate bid to prioritize family commitments. Grace read it while sipping coffee in her Minneapolis kitchen, sunlight warming the small corner nook where Ava had once finger-painted at age 5. The same place where Ethan had built model rockets and Lily practiced her scales on a second-hand keyboard. The headline didn't make her smile. It didn't make her gloat. It simply settled. A full stop at the end of a sentence written 20 years ago. She folded the newspaper and tucked it into a drawer beneath the toaster, not out of pride, but to remind herself that some truths, once spoken, don't need to be shouted again. Later that afternoon, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a sleek black folder with the campaign crest and a single handwritten note on heavy cream paper. Some truths, once seen, cannot be unseen. Thank you, for your grace. A.W. Grace stared at the signature for a moment. Then she set the note aside and walked to her front porch. Her children were already home. Ethan was sprawled on the lawn with blueprints for a solar water filter he was building for his scholarship project. Lily was seated on the porch swing, earbuds in, humming along to a melody she was writing for her upcoming recital. Ava sat cross-legged on the steps, camera in hand, adjusting light angles for a photo series titled Unseen Women. They looked up as she stepped outside. Campaign over, she said simply. Ethan grinned. Good. Ava raised an eyebrow. Because of us? No, Grace said. Because of him. He finally saw the truth. Lily removed one earbud. Do you feel different? Grace thought about that. I feel, still, she said. Like I don't need to carry the weight of his rejection anymore. A breeze lifted the edge of her blouse. The sun spilled gold across the yard. You 3 didn't just confront him, she added. You freed me. That weekend, they packed the car and drove north to Lake Superior. It had become a family tradition, renting a modest cottage every summer for no reason other than being together. They grilled vegetables. Ethan helped Ava fly her drone across the water. Lily played music that made the loons on the lake pause mid-call. That night, wrapped in fleece blankets and surrounded by the crackling of a fire pit, Ethan turned to her. "Do you think he regrets it? Walking away from you?" Grace poked a marshmallow deeper into the flames. "I think he regrets being seen," she said. "And I think part of him wonders who he could have been if he hadn't cared so much about bloodlines." Ava reached for her camera and snapped a shot of Grace's face in firelight. "I want to remember this version of you," she said. "The one who's done hiding." Grace smiled. "I want to remember this version of us." They sat in silence after that, watching sparks dance into the dark sky. She thought about the life she had once imagined: ballrooms, babies in high-end bassinets, perfect holiday cards with matching monograms. She thought about how it had all slipped away with a single diagnosis and a man who couldn't love anything that didn't carry his name. And she thought about the life she built instead: messy, real, chaotic, and loud. A life of scraped knees and emergency dentist appointments and midnight cries from a child who needed to know she wasn't going to disappear. A life of music and science fairs and film festival submissions. A life that didn't need his approval to be whole. Months passed. Grace's design business continued to grow, clients across the country, families who trusted her to make their spaces feel like home. She launched a podcast about interior design as emotional healing. Lily's recital earned her a music scholarship to Berkeley. Ava's photo series was picked up by an independent magazine. Ethan received a full ride to Northwestern for environmental engineering. They weren't perfect. They were something better. One evening, while helping Grace rearrange the living room to photograph a new furniture line, Ava paused. "Do you think we'll always be your story?" Grace blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you saved us. Do you ever wish you'd had kids that weren't already broken when you got them?" Grace set the throw pillow down. She walked over to her daughter and cupped her face in her hands. "You weren't broken. You were hurting. There's a difference." Ava's eyes filled. Grace continued, "I didn't rescue you. You rescued me. I didn't build a life despite you, I built it because of you." Across the room, Lily struck a soft chord on the piano. Outside, Ethan laughed with a neighbor. And in that quiet, golden hour, Grace felt it deep in her bones. She wasn't someone's discarded past anymore. She was the author of her own legacy. And her family? Chosen. Fiercely loved. Finally whole.